wins in tough circumstances that come from behind wins at Hull and Warrington, with Warrington with 12 men in the Super 8s against the same sides, again then in the semi and the grand final. Resilience was probably the winning factor at Wigan, riding an injury crisis that saw much of the salary cap in the stands for much of the year. I don't think anyone can argue that. We overcame internal disciplinary issues after an ill-advised mid-season day at the races, and we also overcame much-deserved criticism about the quality of the team's attacking performance. If anything, the team used that as a spur, in a weird way, because all the criticism was entirely deserved at how our attack was playing. But anyway, internationals like Sam Tompkins, Mickey McLaurin, Joel Tompkins, Sean O'Loughlin and Liam Farrell all missed more than half of the season through injuries. Wigan also, though, we still won 6 games from being behind at half-time, the most in the league, joint with Warrington. Individuals that had standout years... I've not said this bit. Wigan's ability to put out our players in squad numbers 1 to 17 was only worsened by Wakefield, and Wakefield seemed to leave Owen and Tansy out somewhat by choice because both players played on loan elsewhere during the year. So that's how much we were affected with our top end of the squad through injury, for sure. Individuals that had a standout year included Don Manfredi, Wigan's only representative in the official Dream Team. He was top 5 in clean breaks per game in the league and top of the league in tackle bust per game, as well as making 100 metres on average each appearance. Although he had one high-profile error in the Cup semi-final, in Super League he was the second best winger in terms of errors per game. Only Niall Evalds was a regular winger that made fewer errors per game in the Super League this year. Dan Sargentson deserves a mention just for the sheer workload he put himself through. He led the league in carries, was 3rd in total metres and 4th in metres per game. His 20 carries per game really put himself through it. Josh Charnley 3rd in the try charts in his farewell season as well. It's probably been missed by people because he's leaving the team, how good a year he had. John Bateman was the player of the year though at the club's award nights, and it's easy to see why despite his idiotic and damaging off-field behaviour after that day at the races. Ben Curry was the only forward to score more tries than him. Darryl Clark and Mark Minicello were the only forwards to make more clean breaks than him. Chris Hill and Mitch Garbutt were the only forwards who made more metres per game than he did. No other forward had more tackle busts per game than he did, and no player at all made more successful offloads per game than he did. All this was against a backdrop of making more than 30 tackles per game at better than 95% tackle success rate. So all around an outstanding performance from Bateman. The tackle bust numbers and the offload numbers support what Dargana got in touch with us about on email, didn't he, during the week, and that supports all that about wondering what the stats would be if we could get them on a player who was the hardest to tackle. They support that, certainly. A special mention too for Sam Powell. Andrew touched on him, and he was Wigan's only ever present in 2016 in Super League. He's not the best hooker in the league because he's not a hooker. But whatever he lacks in ability in that position, he made up for an effort, regularly playing the full 80 in the middle of the field. He was 2nd in total tackles, 4th in marker tackles, and 5th in tackles per game, making the tackle stick at a 95% success rate, generally up against much bigger men. So deserves the praise he got, 100%. Deserves the votes that he got in some of the awards. He got more votes than James Roby did in our hooker of the year for the Dream Team. He was 3rd out of the 4 hookers there. So
and I'd agree with that. He's stepped up and put himself into a role that isn't his first choice position, and I wouldn't say he's excelled. What he's done is he's done a job for the team and done it, very ably as well.
Yeah, and Danny Houghton's tackle in the cup final got a lot of coverage. Wigan's own,
tackle 52.
Yeah, Wigan's own. I want to open up a bar in Hull called Tackle 52.
Yeah,
it'll work. But Wigan's own tackle of the season in their own awards was the one I talked about probably at great length last week, the Farrell and Gildart one on Tom Lynham.
Yeah, true.
That to me was as much a moment as the Houghton one in the cup final.
To you, yeah.
Yeah, to me.
Very good.
Before we go all chuckle brothers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, to you. Yeah, exactly. Well, look, I can't add to what you said. You're a passionate Wigan fan, and just all I'd say is congratulations. It's good to see you finally get a team to win a trophy on the Super League pod.
Yeah, I think that's tied me over.
A couple of weeks behind Bradford, but still. We won silverware before you.
You did, yeah, that's a good point.
We did with silverware before Wigan.
Well, we're going to move on to the sides in the Championship and the other divisions now, so...
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, we got a couple of reviews in, didn't we? So we'll give those slightly more coverage, and then we'll go through the rest of the Championship and League One as well. London Broncos then. Chris Macy, who's really kept us up to speed on things all London-based this year. He got in touch, so let's hear what Chris had to say about the Broncos season.
Hello, Tom, Mark, everyone else on the podcast. It's Chris here. I'm going to have a go at my season review for the Broncos. So, here it goes. Overall, I can't complain. I think in general we've had a very good season. When you look at the last few years, definitely, we've certainly made some very positive steps, when you compare the squad to last season, and then when you compare us as a club over the last few years, you can go back however long really, we've certainly turned the corner, and we're starting to head in the right direction, which is nice. I'll probably start with Ealing. That's probably the biggest talking point. It's not the biggest ground. A lot of people don't like it. A lot of people don't even think it's Championship standard. But I had my doubts when I first got there as well. But it's a nice little place. There's certainly room for improvement, and I think we will improve. But it's more about the off-field stuff that ground now provides us. The rent's not expensive. We make a bit of money from merchandise and food, which we never really did at Barnet. And we've got everything under one roof: gym, first team, academy, scholarship. They train and play together, all in one place. And that is the biggest positive step. We're now able to reach out into the community as well. As a result, we won that award at the Championship Awards night, which I think is probably the biggest award we could have won, because it shows where we've come from and where we're heading to now. So, I'm really, really chuffed with that. On the field, I also don't really have many complaints. The majority of the games that we lost little things like, for example, Bradford away, poor discipline, I reckon, lost us that one. There was only a couple where we kind of went back to what people expected of us the last couple of years, where we just rolled over and let it happen, like Featherstone away and Sheffield at home, and that were the disappointing ones. And then sort of a bit topsy-turvy in the eights, doing a good job, almost getting Lee, and then, performing well against Leeds, and then beating Salford, which was probably highlight of the year, and then going down so badly to Huddersfield and Hull KO. It's swings and roundabouts, really, isn't it? Hendo's done a fantastic job. He's set up a brilliant little squad. They all play for each other, which is probably the best bit, actually, seeing them week in, week out, pulling the socks up and just steaming into it and wanting to play for each other, wanting to be part of the team. It's not something that we've always seen, so that's really, really pleasing. What else? The backroom staff seem to be doing a good job. The academy got improved, and as a result, the RFL took it up a rank, which was second time in 2 years, I think, which is also fantastic. What was the final point? Probably looking into next year, actually. It's going to be tough, very tough. Hull KR coming down. It's going to be very interesting. Toulouse going up. Bradford are going to be better. Featherstone, Batley are also, more secure. Hopefully Sheffield are going to be there. I really, really don't want to see the Eagles go under. So hopefully something can happen there. It's looking to be a very entertaining season next year. The turnover of players, I think, is probably going to be our biggest issue at the moment, because we're losing some real talent in the form of like Nick Sliney, Scott Leatherbarrow, and John Malgreen. It's probably the most gutting one. Is a young lad coming through the ranks. He's a bit of a unit, and he's getting better every year. So that was disappointing to lose him. So I guess to look at what Hendo's going to bring in over the close season, but we have faith in him. So far so good. So happy days indeed. Right, that's me just about done. So enjoy the internationals, enjoy the rest of the season, the grand final, enjoy winter and Christmas and all that lot, and we'll see you next year.
Okay, that's tremendously detailed, and thank you, Chris, for getting in touch and giving us your thoughts on how London have done.
I enjoyed how thorough he was, and then he was like, "What else?" And I was like, "What else can you talk about? What's going to happen for next season?"
Yeah, no, fantastic. That's exactly what I want to see. Thank you so much for the time that you've put in across the year, Chris, and for sending that
for being
in.
the first one to get a fan review in this year as well.
Yeah, that's it. Front of the queue. We like your style. It has been an exceptional year for London, and there's been a number of highlights that Chris has alluded to. I can't really add a great deal to that. I don't know what you've got to say, but they are more competitive. They are building something there in London, I think, and there's some stability there now down in Ealing, and that accompanied with this group of players that like to work hard for each other with a strong hardcore of fans behind them, I think, you know, they're going to be a very competitive force in the Championship again next season.
Yeah, they had Alan Partridge's Bouncing Back as their novel of their book of the year, I think, didn't they? Because they really did get on board with that. Chris touched on the off-field setup. I think the coaching, the changes they made in the coaching as well as the playing side did settle things down at the club this year, didn't they? You know, all of that scenery that Chris touched on. So they ended second to lead in the regular season, and then that gives them actually extra central funding when they've ended up sixth in the qualifiers too for next year, which will hopefully mean another middle-aged campaign for them, stability, a long-term full-time vision in London that can be sustained. So I can't really add much more to what Chris said because he covered everything, didn't he?
He did, he absolutely smashed it. He saved you and I both a job. Another Championship review we got in was for the Bradford Bulls, and that one came in from another long-time Super League pod listener and contributor, Mr. Alan Cale. Let's hear what he had to say.
Bradford Bulls in 2016. What can we say about it? He actually started off pretty brightly, unbeaten until Easter Monday. He even gave us hope, but as we say, it's the hope that kills you. The season just got worse for us, losing some really disappointing games to part-time opposition. Ultimately ending up in a very disappointing result in July against Featherstone, where we got comprehensively outplayed by a team who were, quite frankly, more keen to win than we were. We had incredible turnover in the team. They only had 9 players who actually played in that Featherstone game that actually started the season against Featherstone. Lots of players brought in during the season, lots of turnover in the team, some very strange signings in the off-season that we kind of experimented with and got rid of pretty quickly. Very disappointing. Championship Shield, a bit of a sideshow relevance really. But at least we won a piece of silverware. First one for 10 years. Yeah, nothing really to celebrate there. But there you go. Here's hoping for much better in 2017. After all, it couldn't get much worse, can it?
So, Tom, not as triumphant as you are about the Championship Shield, but short and sweet from Alan covering all the key points. What do you have to add from your Bradford fans' perspective?
Yeah, well, he's spoken very eloquently about what went wrong this season. There's not a great deal more I can add to that. What I prefer to do is look to the future with the Bulls and the change in ethos and the change in the way things are going under Rowan Smith. It's a really positive appointment, one that I was excited about when it was made, a bit perhaps unheralded with him coming up from being at the Gold Coast Titans as an assistant coach and taking his first full-time job. But actually, tentatively, what's happened is that there's been, whether it's by design or by necessity, there's been a reinvestment in youth at Bradford in terms of the playing squad for next season. A number of our under-19s have been promoted into the first team to augment and to support the lads that will be what you imagine 1 to 17 on a weekly basis. We seem to have a spine in the team with Adam O'Brien, Dane Chisholm, Leon Price coming back, Kieran Moss, and then young hounds like Oscar Thomas and Joe Keys as well. Actually, potentially a very exciting sort of 9-6-7-1 that we can actually play around.
Bradford Broncos.
You never know. Exactly. Well, there's a couple of London players in there as well. We've signed a couple. We've picked up a couple. We've picked up some a couple of props and a second rower from London as well. Some young lads. So again, there's this investment in youth. Players like Jason Walton coming from Wakefield. I think he'll go well at Championship level. it tends